Hello and welcome, everyone. Good morning or afternoon or evening. And thank you for joining us for now this second session of the JCoR SDG Lab, which is our response to the UN's High-Level Political Forum on Sustainable Development for the year 2025. And for those who may not be familiar with JCoR, we are the Justice Coalition of Religious, which is a group of 24 NGOs that have an accreditation to represent the mission of Catholic sisters, brothers, priests, and their partners through the United Nations system in order to advance justice, peace, and the integrity of creation. And so we have gathered as a group of delegates who have been preparing and following a process for input and contribution to this UN conference, which each year gathers to review progress toward the achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals. And so in our lab sessions this week, we take as a focus each day one of the 5 SDGs that has been selected as a priority for this year's high-level political forum on sustainable development. So we began our lab series yesterday with rich input from several of our delegates on the subject of SDG 3, good health. And today, we have the opportunity to hear from more of our delegates on the subject of SDG 5. And SDG 5 is to achieve gender equality and the empowerment of all women and girls. Of course, this goal is one that is very near and dear in a special way to many of the congregations that are part of JCoR, as we see gender equality as very central to the mission that we all contribute to through many different ministries and good works throughout the world. And we see it as essential to a foundation that would support the achievement of all types of development and certainly all of the sustainable development goals. So today on this theme, we will have the opportunity to hear from several members of the JCoR family from different corners of the world. We will hear from Sister Ligia Molina Sevilla, a sister of the Congregation of Notre Dame of Montreal, who joins us from Guatemala. We will hear from Prasancha Caroline Rai, a mission partner and educator for the Institute of the Blessed Virgin Mary, Loreto Sisters of India. We will also hear from Sister Reggie Augustin, a medical mission sister in India. From Caridad Gala Montoya, a Claretian mission partner in the Dominican Republic. Christian Chang Kung, a Claretian missionary in Indonesia. And Arnolda Cavanamor, a missionary sister of the Holy Spirit, which is part of our member Vivat International, and who joins us from Papua New Guinea. So we will begin by inviting to the floor, to the microphone, Sister Ligia Molina, again, a sister of the Congregation of Notre Dame of Montreal, who joins us to share about her observations and analysis related to SDG 5 in Guatemala. Sister Ligia, you have the floor.
Good morning. Teresa, could you please show the video? Good morning, everyone. We are here talking about SDG 5 in Guatemala. I'm going to refer to the report that was presented by the Guatemalan government and the answer of the civil society, of course. Next one, please. So Guatemala is in Central America. It has a population of 18.12 million, 50.81% women, 49.19% men, and a territorial surface of 108,889 square kilometers. It is in the center. It has a mixed population, partially indigenous. And as a start, answering to the question of where does my experience agree with the report that was presented by the Guatemalan government, who has presented their fifth VNR. They presented, first of all, some progress. Guatemala ranks at the moment in the number 29th in the Global Gender Index in 2021. They implemented also certain gender-sensitive strategies in education, protection against violence, and access to land and labor inclusion. This is the progress that I could recognize. In terms of the social political participation of women, there is some progress in women in leadership positions, because we have a female president at the moment, and there are several members of parliament who are women, 8. So in total, we have 12 people in leadership positions in the government, and it helps a lot that some of them are indigenous as well. In the report, I could recognize the intercultural approach, and the report values and seeks to integrate the contributions of indigenous and ancestral authorities in the discussion and the planning of the SDGs. So I see that there is participation, inclusion, and leadership in this regard. Next one. Another advancement that I could recognize in the report, the report mentions the prevention of early unions and pregnancy in girls and adolescents. There is a program that was created for the integral care of women and girls that were victims of violence. And the right of women to a title deed has been included in the law, which is an advancement. Next one. What is missing from the government's report on SDG 5? One of the things that I could detect, according to my experience, is that many of the data presented in the report are not updated. They are not accurate. Previous slide, please. In the previous slide, I believe that you can see well, I mentioned that the statistical data are not updated, and statistics are not drawn interinstitutionally. So there are institutions from outside the country that are providing more data than our very own government. And in terms of consultations, although it's true that they have consulted and support the indigenous population, there are sectors that were not taken into account, like trade unions or professional associations. Next slide, please. Where do I conflict or disagree with the government's report? Well, I see that there are some gaps in training. The training that they mention is not carried out in the most vulnerable sectors where women are in a continuous struggle to survive discrimination. So these training programs don't reach these vulnerable populations, and I cannot understand why they don't go there if they are going other places. And women's participation is not visible in education, in health, labor, social, and in religious sectors. Women are always on the side. Guatemala has improved a bit, but there is a huge gap to be overbridged yet. Next one. I have chosen these images because they show what is happening in Guatemala. Young mothers that cannot attend school because they have become mothers when they were 12 or 10 years old. And although there is an improvement in psychological and physical violence, there are still great gaps. 90% of mother girls didn't attend school, and there is also a difference between the violence, gender violence in the cities and in rural areas. Next one, please. The SDG 5, when we study this SDG, we see that many organizations in the country have raised their voices to speak up for women that have been subjected to violence, because there is a sector there where women are not able to participate, and so they are forgotten. Discrimination continues, and and violence, gender violence, is very common, although it is kind of hidden now. It's not very obvious, but it is very, very important in rural and marginal areas. Next one, please. So I was saying that there is a lack of visibility of women in an integral way for a real human development. Since reports mention social protection and all the measures that the government has taken, but there is no integral approach to the development of women. So the result is not as good as we could wish for. They don't talk about children and the youth, and very little about the elderly and disabled people. These collectivities are forgotten. So the report was not interdisciplinary or integral. Next one. One of the aspects that I could recognize are certain limiting factors for SDG 5 that should be addressed by the government and civil society, by all those who are in contact with SDG 5. One of them is cultural norms and customs that are detrimental to women's dignity and rights and influence the achievement of SDG 5. And these cultural customs are fostering machismo and discrimination. And these cultural and structural barriers are difficult to reconcile with the integral empowerment of women and their role in society. And this is very important because cultural norms and customs require an interdisciplinary approach, an institutional approach. It needs the involvement of all to create the experience of women being able to express themselves and to take their place in society and participate actively, so that they can find trust in themselves and in society. And cultural norms and customs are not allowing women to develop themselves, and neither personally nor in the labor market. They are trapped in at home doing housework, and they are not visible, and their lack of inclusion in the labor market is limiting them, is limiting their participation in society and at all levels, even in the church, their participation in the church. Next slide, please. Next one. So here you can see what I was just saying. There are gender gaps and inequalities that are recognizable in the labor market, in the time that women spend on domestic chores or doing unpaid care work, and everything takes place inside their homes. And so they are really working, but they are not visible. They took care not just of their husbands and children, but also their uncles, their aunts, the elderly of the family. And sometimes they are also relegated to agriculture, to doing work on the field, and in an informal way. There are sectors where they are not recognized as labor. They are relegated to low productivity sectors, and their work is informal. So indigenous women are there to cook these tortillas, and even to sow and grow maize, and then cook these tortillas. But this is all a very marginal activity. It's not recognized as paid labor. Next one. There is no equal access to education. Girls continue to be discriminated against in relation to their male siblings in the framework of education. We really wish that they would have equal access to education, but these cultural customs and norms relegate them, and especially those populations that are far away from the big cities. So young girls have a great difficulty in accessing education. And the maternal and infant mortality has improved, but there is still a lack of comprehensive healthcare for women, and a lack of comprehensive health services, even if if the mortality rate has decreased, because women don't have access to these comprehensive health services that they would need. They are either geographically far away, or they have different barriers to have access, although there is an improvement in this area. Next one, please. In this slide, I have chosen several pictures that can help us to recognize how women, young women, are trying to get integrated in schools, and in technology, and in labor, and in society. So you see a queue of women waiting for their bonus, and all these pictures make the participation of women relevant. Although these improvements are very slow and very reduced, it is important that women start having a political role, a social role. Otherwise, we won't be able to achieve the Agenda 2030. Next one, please. And these are my recommendations or suggestions. It is urgent to establish a multi-sectorial, democratic and inclusive dialogue to approach the real needs of the population, making women visible through their whole development, from birth through adolescence, adulthood, and to old age, and making them participate in all these different stages. And there is a struggle against patriarchy and discrimination. And we live in a very patriarchal and machistic society where women were always relegated to their homes. And this system or custom has been perpetuated, and it is urgent to make women visible, to give them a space to speak up, to educate them throughout their whole lives, not just when they are children, and both in rural and urban areas. Next slide, please. To empower women and girls, we need to remove structural and cultural barriers, those barriers that women face in terms of injustice, discrimination, and exclusion, barriers that are limiting their active participation in society, in the labor, social, political, community, and ecclesial spheres. So the approach needs to be interinstitutional and holistic. And I'm coming to an end. I hope that you liked my sharing about the VNR of Guatemala in 2025. I feel that the active participation of women requires an interinstitutional approach, as I already mentioned, to achieve confidence, credibility, and to overcome fear in women in terms of coming forward to make complaints without fear of vengeance or reprisal, because they are people and they are not seen as people with rights. And therefore, it is important to increase their capacity and their rights. Next slide, please. You can see here some pictures of women that are participating in different activities, and they are developing themselves. You can see them as girls, as young women in their elderly years, and it is important that we establish this intersectorial dialogue, democratic and inclusive dialogue, to approach the real needs of the female population. Next one, please. So after my recommendations and suggestions and my analysis, I just want to thank you very much for your attention. I would like to thank every single one of you. I felt heard, and I see that there is a great participation today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sister Ligia. And I am taking from your comments two big ideas, well, among many others, and your emphasis on that empowerment of women and work toward gender equality must be integral. And you've mentioned many times throughout that development or empowerment for women means that they need visibility in every sector, in every aspect of life, and that this has kind of a dual purpose. One is, of course, that it serves women and girls across all of these sectors, but at the same time, to take as a focus, as a strategy for those in leadership, to ensure the inclusion of women and girls across all sectors also inherently enables an inclusion of many other populations that have faced different layers of marginalization, different layers of barrier to access to opportunity, and to well-being. You mentioned those who are part of indigenous populations, those who live in rural areas, persons with disabilities, the very young, the very old, all of these different layers of marginalization can be addressed through the approach of the empowerment of women and girls. And so looking throughout all of the aspects of culture, from economy, the political, the ecclesial, is not to be forgotten. These are all so important, and this idea of integral development, integral work toward gender equality, is such an important idea that you have conveyed to us. Thank you very much for your sharing. And now that we have heard from Ligia in Guatemala, we will go next across the globe to hear from Prasancha Caroline Rai, who is again a mission partner and educator through the Institute of the Blessed Virgin Mary, Loreto Generalit, and she is joining us to speak about her perspective on work toward achievement of SDG 5 in India. So Prasancha, you have the floor.
Thank you, Teresa. Good morning, afternoon, and evening to everyone. I will be presenting my observations today from two perspectives. My personal observation of India's progress towards SDG 5, as well as the ministry project of the congregation I represent. India's VNR 2025 report on SDG 5, that is gender equality, states that the progress on this SDG is receiving renewed focus. Greater awareness across all segments of society is being spread on the importance of achieving gender equality. There are many initiatives like the Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao, which translates into Save the Girl Child, Educate the Girl Child, Mission Shakti, women helplines, Nari Adalat, self-help groups, etc., have improved the efficiency of welfare services and protection of women and girls in India. However, the VNR makes only a passing reference to prevalent issues like interstate and international human trafficking, child marriage, and gender-based violence. In my observation, the VNR underrepresents the scale of gender-based violence in India. Data from the National Crime Records Bureau, the NCRB, reveals over 4 lakh crimes against women in 2022, with high levels of domestic violence, sexual assault, and child marriage. The NCRB Crime in India 2022 report shows an increase in the rate of crime against women from 58.8 in 2018 to 66.4 in 2022, with the national capital Delhi recording the highest crime rate against women. citing from an article published on 4th December 2023 in the Times of India, India records 51 cases of crime against women every hour. The VNR's own data, I quote, a total of 8,438 million women have been assisted by the 181 women helplines across the country since its inception till 31st January 2025, unquote, highlights not just the commendable service towards women's security and welfare, but also reflects the underlying stark reality of insecurity faced by women in the absence of a mindset that promotes gender equality. The Deccan Herald, in its 10th September 2024 issue, writes, I quote again, "From the harrowing day of a woman on a bustling street in Ujjain to the brutal rape and murder of a trainee doctor at Kolkata's Medical College, India's escalating crisis of sexual violence against women is not just a series of grim statistics. It is a profound national tragedy," unquote. The data available is just the tip of the iceberg. There are innumerable assaults, rape, molestation, domestic violence, even female homicide, which are concealed beneath factors like societal pressure, stigma, power play, fear, and systemic failures. Regarding economic participation, schemes like Mudra and Skill India are mentioned in the VNR. What is not critically addressed is the female labor force participation, which as of 2024 remains around 25%, among the lowest globally. The issue of women's unpaid labor too is acknowledged only superficially. It underrepresents regional disparities, grassroots challenges, marginalized groups like rural women, tribal women, girls, and women and girls with special needs. Non-governmental organizations, educational institutions, and social bodies play a crucial role in promoting gender equality and empowering women and girls. It is my privilege to share with you in brief the ministry project of Loreto IBVM in India. Our institutions have been consistently working towards promoting gender equality through education, empowerment, and social outreach. In our educational institutions, our students are provided a platform to be aware and to raise awareness on gender equality. SDG 5 has been one of the JPIC actionable goals taken up by our schools. Students are actively involved in campaigns like the 1 Billion Rising each year with new themes and artistic actions. Our schools in Darjeeling, a district in West Bengal, have Students Against Trafficking clubs working with local NGOs to combat human trafficking. In 2016, 2 of our students were awarded the National Children's Bravery Award by the President of India for their heroic act in busting an international human trafficking racket in North Bengal. Workshops on relevant topics like exploring feminism, power dynamics, restorative justice, leadership development, sanitation and menstrual hygiene, self-defense and vocational training, civic engagement projects, and gender equality are organized in the schools as part of the holistic curriculum. Our schools in Kolkata run the Rainbow Homes, residential homes located within the school premises for street children. This was initiated in Loreto Day School, Shialda, inspired by the belief that every child deserves a home, education, and dignity. These rainbow homes provide residential care, education, psychosocial support, life skills, healthcare, and community integration to girls who are rehabilitated from the streets to these homes. The rainbow homes reflect the spirit of faith in action, justice through education, and love in service. We have the Kolkata Mary Ward Social Center, KMWSC, the social development wing of the Loreto Sisters in Kolkata. It is committed to promoting justice, dignity, and equality, especially among women, adolescents, and children of the marginalized, deprived, migrant, slum, red light, and tribal communities in both the rural and urban settings. Aligned with SDG 5, to achieve gender equality and empower all women and girls, KMWSC undertakes multiple initiatives to eliminate gender-based discrimination and violence and enhance women's socio-economic participation. A few of the initiatives contributing to SDG 5 taken up by KMWSC are as follows: protection through the Anti-Human Trafficking Project, Survivors Project, Human Rights Project, and Red Light Project. We focus on creating awareness on gender equality, gender-based violence, and basic human rights. The rescue and rehabilitation focuses on victim-centric approach by creating economic, educational, and livelihood support, thus forming a safety net in the community for a prevention mechanism. Awareness is also provided to men in these at-risk community to sensitize them and make them aware of rights and laws for gender-based violence. The project also focuses on networking with government stakeholders to support activities for women empowerment. Education, the Brickfield Project, Lotus Child Project, and Identity Project primarily focuses on educational development of the underprivileged children, both boys and girls, providing education, healthcare services, mass awareness on health and sanitation. We have community empowerment programs. Deep-rooted gender inequality hampers the development of these communities. Children are often forced into labor or early marriages due to poverty, while women remain marginalized in both the household and community decision-making processes. The threat of natural disasters, frequent storms, high tides, flooding add to the vulnerability, regularly disrupting education, healthcare, and food supply. Nari Shakti, that is women empowerment, seeks to break this cycle of marginalization by focusing on livelihood and community development with a strong emphasis on women's empowerment. By enabling women to become active contributors to their households and communities, the project aims to create a more equitable and sustainable future. Health and hygiene awareness. The Landing Pad Project is operated in various unorganized, vulnerable, underprivileged areas, villages, tribal communities. The people belonging to these areas experience inequity since these localities mainly lack proper education and social awareness and suffer from a poor socio-economical background. They are not aware of the basic human rights and are mostly involved as unorganized laborers, unconsciously promoting child labor for mere income. The practice of isolating menstruating girls as impure still exists in these areas. The people of these areas lack the idea of the biological process women go through. And women and girls too grow up believing that isolation is normal without much outer knowledge and exposure. Mass awareness, poster campaigns, interactive sessions, pre and post questionnaires are framed and distributed. Street plays are conducted in the rural areas by professionals to address this issue. Kolkata Mary Ward Social Centre's mission aligns strongly with the objectives of SDG 5. Through holistic, community-based approaches, KMWSC is creating a transformative impact on gender equality, contributing towards a more just and inclusive society for women and girls, mainly in West Bengal, Bihar, and Jharkhand in India. In conclusion, I would like to state that India's VNR 2025 report reflects a strong policy commitment to gender equality. However, it underrepresents grassroots level challenges and critical issues like gender-based violence, human trafficking, and women's participation in the labor force. The report also overlooks the significant role of schools and civil society organizations in advancing gender equality through education, advocacy, life skills, rescue operations, and community empowerment. A stronger and more inclusive approach to SDG 5 must involve better partnership between government bodies and civil society organizations. For the civil society organizations contribute ground level insight, and together they can ensure that schemes are adapted to local realities, that marginalized voices are heard, and that impact is measured meaningfully. India's strategy, I feel, must evolve from a policy-driven narrative to a people-centered movement as we move closer towards becoming a Vikshit Bharat, a developed India by 2047. Thank you very much for hearing me out.
Thank you so much for your comments and your expert analysis, Prasancha, and we really value your opinion as someone who is day-to-day involved in the empowerment of girls, especially, and to help them also to enter a world in which there is more justice and fairness. And certainly through all of the projects that you named, of which there was a huge and beautiful variety, from anti-trafficking clubs to rainbow homes, and many others. Certainly the Sisters of the Institute of the Blessed Virgin Mary, and any moment now to be joined with the Congregation of Jesus, are really embodying this. I don't know if it's a common mantra that you all use frequently, but I really liked your phrase, the mission of justice through education and love through service. That's so evident across the ministries and projects that you describe to us. And I also want to make a connection between your comments and Lihia's before you, when you mentioned how important it is in working with young girls to help them envision that reality ought to be something other than it is for them, by kind of working against the idea that isolation is normal. And that came through again in Lihia's presentation as well. This idea of the visibility of women and girls is so important if we are to ever achieve equality with respect to gender. So thank you very much for your comments. And now we will be able to continue to think about India as we will move on to our next speaker, who is a member of the Medical Mission Sisters, also coming from India, and that is Sister Reggie Augustine. So Sister Reggie, you have the floor. Thank you very much, Sister Reggie. And here you have added another new perspective into our analysis by bringing your legal background and expertise. And I think we rarely hear much about the structure and organization of our courts and legal systems, and perhaps the role they play in access to justice. But you've mentioned some clear obstacles in that regard, fees around family courts, prolonged periods of time waiting for cases to be heard in response to domestic violence, harassment, cruelty. And there are certainly changes that can be made there, as well as in sectors of women's leadership, both inside and outside the home. And in needs of social services, the idea of the one-stop shop. These are great concrete suggestions. And you echo another great point that Prasancha delivered a few minutes ago about the importance of localization, of bringing the high-level policy into reality by allowing local level leadership to apply it, shape it, and make it suitable at the panchayat level, the local level, and to ensure that women's voices are part of that shaping, part of that leadership all the way down. So thank you for those very important insights and observations that you have offered to us as well. And now we will move on to hear from our next speaker today. We go all the way from India to the Caribbean, as we will hear from Caridad Calamontoya, who is a mission partner of the Clarations in the Dominican Republic. So Caridad, tiene la palabra.
Good morning. Could you please show my presentation? Do you have my presentation? I will start talking when you can see my presentation. So the presentation that I have brought here to share with you today, my intention is to make visible the inequity and gaps that are existing in our country, as well as some good practices in the fulfillment of sustainable development goals from the perspective of the peripheral and border communities. And this is our focus. This is a focus with which we analyzed the VNR to see which were the gaps in SDG 3 and 5. Can you show next slide, please? So we started from the challenges that were facing people that were in rural and mountain communities in the province of Independencia. And we also want to show good practices to mitigate and or reduce the inequality gaps that affect women and men in these communities. Although we will focus mainly on SDG 3 and 5, we will talk about other SDGs as well that appear in our analysis. The methodology that we have used for this critical analysis, we have based not just on the VNR, but also on the different elements that were mentioned in the 8th Development Forum of the Latin America and in the Caribbean, as well as other reports, national and local reports that were published by our government that help put everything in perspective. First of all, there are some general reflections with which we agree. All the government is committed and has made an effort, and this effort is shared by the civil society, and both the government and civil society are committed to develop and not leave anybody behind. And these efforts are done in the economy, but also in environment and in other aspects. In the VNR, there are still some challenges that make this process difficult. There are some big challenges ahead of us that we need to solve. Next. This one. Both reports, and I'm talking about the 8th Latin American Caribbean Forum and the VNR, both reports refer to steps taken to promote a multidimensional and subjective measurement of poverty. However, the data provided in the VNR make very little reference to the micro bands of local inequality in health, access to resources, education, employment, etc., to which women and men are exposed in these areas of the peripheries and the mountains. Therefore, it is still a big challenge to create actions to mitigate these challenges. On the other hand, the data that are shown in these two reports on female mortality tend to forget important aspects that affect the female mortality. The province of Independence is one of the 7 border regions that have the highest number of mortality, the highest mortality rate between 2023 and 2025. On top of that, there are no data on the follow-up of women and newborns that didn't come to hospitals. Next one, please. On another perspective, although the report indicates that there are structural barriers related to social inequalities in the country, when it approaches resources, the VNR insists in a generalized narrative and a structural narrative that polarizes the discourse. There is an absence of health services and facilities in communities such as Sabana Real and Ángel Feliz. And there is a lack of sexual education programs and sexual and reproductive health care for rural women, as well as inequalities and difficulties in accessing medicines due to the absence of pharmacies and the high out-of-pocket health expenses for men and women. That makes very difficult for them to have access to any healthcare service. So both reports, and especially the VNR, pay little attention to the high level of exposure to sexually transmitted diseases without preventive and timely treatment, because since there are no healthcare systems and there is a high rate of illiteracy in those areas, it is very difficult to have the knowledge to deconstruct the inadequate sexual practices that don't prevent illnesses. And of course, these rural and marginal areas are more affected. Next one, please. On the other hand, the Clark report identifies the consumption of addictive substances, specifically alcohol, as a problem that affects the Dominican Republic. Nevertheless, the VNR is not mentioning this data at all. And this gap is linked to the almost non-existent leisure and recreation strategies in rural and mountain communities, which makes that alcohol consumption is higher in those communities, both under men and women, because the culture of alcohol consumption is the only recreation possibility in those areas. In both reports acknowledge that the Dominican Republic does not have a high mortality rate attributable to household and air pollution, which remains a challenge in the area of waste management, solid waste management. According to local documents, the Ministry of Economy and Planning, etc., these local documents refer to a widening gap between progress and the reality. Air pollution from improper burning of waste and the dumping of waste and wastewater into scarce water sources contribute to the institutionalization of anti-ecological practices that have a negative impact on the health of the population. Next one, please. There have been many advances in gender policies and their cross-cutting approach in our country, and it is mentioned in the VNR. The VNR also mentions the intersectoral approach, but very little is said in the reports about the feminicide rate. Our country is the second one in the number of feminicides in Latin America and the Caribbean. There is also little said about the patriarchal and misogynistic culture present in Dominican society, which is based on gender stereotypes and places women at a significant social disadvantage, mainly in rural communities, where they are victims of symbolic, economic, and structural violence based on the normalization of the heteropatriarchal culture established among its inhabitants. Both reports provide little information on the low level of education among mountain and border population, with high illiteracy rates and its negative impact on the presence of women in management or political positions. And this is a consequence of gap in access to educational opportunities, structural inequality, and the normalization of gender roles that place women at the epicenter of domestic work. And to come to an end in my analysis of this text, there are very few data on the access of young women and children to education, which contributes to the factor that's mentioned on illiteration. It is very difficult for these young women and girls to have access to the labor market later. And they can't even imagine to play a part in political processes. So these educational gaps are relegating or are bringing women far away from the political and the social relevant roles. And this is leading to a forced migration for young women, because when they get pregnant, since there are no health services in their area, they need to move far away, 25 kilometers away, to deliver. And it is the same in education. After primary school, or the first 4 courses of primary school, women sometimes relocate to another place where children can continue studying after the 4th grade. So this is leading to an internal migration of women that are trying to guarantee education for their children. And all these factors are scarcely mentioned in the VNR. And we believe that the best way to make our suggestions heard was through the report of the civil society that was presented this year in New York. You know that the government presented the report, and the civil society had the opportunity to prepare a counter report or an answer to that. Because we would like this point of view to be included in the planning of the government. After mentioning all these elements, I would like to show you some examples of good practices from the work of PROMICLA and other NGOs. In our missionary experience to mitigate these realities in the Dominican Republic, we have managed different projects in these border communities in an effort to integrate them and to minimize the gaps. The first steps that we made to guarantee the incorporation of the SDGs and to reduce the gaps that women are facing to have access to health services. Among these first steps, as I was saying, is the diagnosis of the main vulnerabilities and needs faced by men and women in these communities. We are talking about communities that are 1,300 meters high over sea level. We are talking about the central rural areas that are really isolated. We also established certain cooperation alliances with other foundations to obtain financial means for projects, and we hired trained personnel for project management, coordination, and development. Next slide, please. This has led, for example, to one of the projects that we have developed to strengthen community health and improve sanitation services in rural and border communities. In this project, we have tried to, I'm not going to read everything that is on there, but we tried to improve the quality of life and the well-being of the population by reducing gaps in essential health service coverage and reducing non-communicable diseases resulting from the consumption of contaminated water and food, as well as establishing a health risk management system by creating health committees to provide fair assistance to especially girls and women. These health committees provide first aid to the local population and help to build latrines to reduce also violence, violent approaches or violence treatment that women and girls are being attacked when they go for their basic needs if there are no latrines. Next one, please. The first steps that we carried out are the following. We started with training activities, of course, and here you can see how SDGs are interconnected. In these training activities, we offer training workshops for women and men on disease prevention. If we are trying to achieve gender equality, we cannot limit ourselves to empower women or to train women. We need to train men as well. So these training workshops were offered not just for men, but also, not only for women, but also for men on disease prevention, first aid, sexually transmitted diseases, the environment, sustainable development, healthy lifestyles, gender equality, human rights, etc. These are the main topics that we are including in our project so that these men and women can use their knowledge, the knowledge that they have gained in these workshops, they can use them in their daily life. On the other hand, we have delivered first aid kits and established health committees, equipping them with basic materials. Next slide, please. To provide first aid, assist, and supply basic medicines to residents. So we buy the medicines, the drugs, and we train these health committees to distribute them, and we help them to build a space where the population can come to ask for a certain type of drug or medicine if they need it. And if they need a first aid, our health committee is also trained to help others in basic aid needs. They even move to the closest population, to the closest area to help. Next one, please. This process of the first aid kits is developed together with health lectures where activities are carried out aimed at early childhood care and promoting knowledge of sexual and reproductive education. Health personnel is hired to carry out these training workshops, but also to teach younger girls and boys to learn about their bodies and about prevention. Next one. We also have promoted the construction of latrines, the access to adequate and equitable sanitation and hygiene services for all, mitigating any type of violence to which women and girls may be exposed. You can see some images before and after the construction of the latrines, which helps women not to be exposed when they are doing their basic needs, their physiological needs. Next one. These projects are complemented by another project of it's an outreach program to reduce intersectional vulnerabilities affecting people living in extreme poverty with disabilities or experiencing homelessness due to their migration status through differentiated care by providing food, agricultural resources, and hygiene supplies. And finally, next one. And finally, in other communities and parallel to the previous programs, in communities that are not so exposed and not so isolated, we started programs to raise awareness from an early age about the need to care for and protect the environment, organizing cleanup and waste collection days in places where families and children socialize. In general, I've tried to give you an overview of our critical point of view of the VNR. And I have given you some examples of the projects that we have articulated in the Dominican Republic from PROMICLA. We aim at minimizing the gaps and promoting the implementation of the SDGs in our country. And we have based our criticism on the two reports, the VNR and the Latin America and the Caribbean report. Thank you very much.
Muchísimas gracias, Caridad. That analysis was
Caridad.
so high level. I really appreciate your effort to make comparisons from the regional report for Latin America and the Caribbean with the national report from your government in the Dominican Republic. And it really is a great way and a model that we can all follow in each of our regions, as we know that each year before this high-level political forum, there is also a regional forum for each region in which, groupings of countries in the world who often share much in common due to regional realities are able to share a lot of their own perspectives on progress toward the SDGs, and it is a great framework for this kind of comparison that Caridad has shared with us today. And I also want to commend the wonderful, comprehensive approach of the health initiative that you have just introduced to us. The way that the idea of a need for gender analysis and gender sensitivity are integrated throughout the project in its many facets, and that you are also looking at some of the root causes of health disparities in mountain and border communities. You are talking about lack of education, lack of literacy, and simple lack of accessibility to major healthcare centers, lack of access to medicines. And in that project, I think you are realizing one of the key recommendations that we have heard from other speakers today, again, this idea of local level empowerment. For local communities to have this essential training that can address many of the most immediate needs and to empower people to lift up their own communities where they are. And as you mentioned, one important additional outcome of providing that safety and good health in especially rural communities is it also prevents to some degree the need, the necessity to move to other locations just to have basic health and security. And of course, we know that when people move, especially women and girls, their vulnerabilities increase in many different ways. And so simply creating greater safety, greater education, better quality of life and health in one's own community and avoiding forced migration is also a huge improvement in a person's overall outlook, reducing their vulnerability throughout their life. So an amazing project, and thank you so much for your amazing analysis as well. And now we will move on to another region yet again. We will go back to Asia in order to hear from Christian Kangchung, who is a Claretian missionary and who joins us today to share his perspective on implementation of SDG 5 in Indonesia. So Christian, you have the floor.
Hey, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. Teresa, allow me to share my updated presentation because
Yes,
I
you
added
can.
more
Go ahead.
information. Okay. I guess I'm the only man here for this presentation on SDG 5, gender equality, but it is a pleasure to share our experience here in Indonesia. First of all, I would like to review our Indonesia's voluntary national review to 2025, and it was presented last July 22 on the high level political meeting in New York. Under the theme, based on the report that we have, the theme was fostering inclusive growth, advancing a sustainable and resilient Indonesia. From our reading, it's very clear the government exposed a very positive and promising report or observations, based on the statistical number of the government report, etc. So the report claims government's achievements in social progress, good governance, international cooperation, and Indonesia's active and participative engagement in the international community. And in one line, it says that as of 2024 report, approximately 61.4% of the 233 indicators of SDGs are on track to achieve SDGs by 2030. So that's the claim of the government. Related to SDGs 3, 8, 14, and 17, the report says that the government has succeeded to achieve in health reform, like cutting infant mortality to 16.85 per 1,000 live births, and then to expand national health insurance to 98% coverage. In terms of marine conservation, it spans 29 to 9.9 million hectares. It's about safeguarding biodiversity while fueling a thriving blue economy. And also, the report says that Indonesia is mobilizing diverse resources and fostering strong partnerships to drive sustainable development. But ironically, the report misses to acknowledge, let's say, the lack or the negative situation based on the realities on the ground. And this is what some stakeholders, especially the NGOs and other civil society institutes, and also from our observations, we found out that the reality here in Indonesia, like for example, the poverty rate in Indonesia as of by March 2025, it is still at 8 0.47%. It's approximately 23.85 millions, but some says other report says that it is more than, even could be reached 30 million among the populations. And most especially among those, we have 34 provinces, and these are the two provinces with this highest number of poverty rate, Papua and NTT. This is the South Nusa Tenggara. Yeah, I belong to this province. And the second one, another reality is about the stunting number. It is still high. And also the poor health facilities in the countryside. Yeah, these things are not recognized or even not reported in the VNR, no, from our government. And also, let's say that the latest issue here in Indonesia is about an environmental crisis. Yeah, there is still going on the ground, especially in the islands of Papua and Kalimantan or Borneo, the problem of deforestation for the purpose of planting the palm oil and mining. Yeah, millions of hectares have been sacrificed by the government just to allow big companies or foreign investment for making or creating this new palm oil in those two important big islands. And also the problem of human trafficking. Yeah, in the latest report, especially in my province, as of this month of July, there are more than 120 migrant workers who dive in Malaysia because of different causes, etc. Most of them died because of severe illness. And yeah, it is complicated also to see how the government also have struggled how to deal with the Malaysian government in dealing with this issue on human trafficking. Yeah, that's the situation, the realities. So on SDG 5, gender equality, I would like to present also this latest, the statistical number of the population. As of 2023, the population of Indonesia is 278.7 million. And the number of women is about 137.9 million. So we can imagine, it's very big. It's not only how to say it's by number, but also it is for us. It is a potential number for the country itself. So the government claims on SDG 5 on gender equality. It says in gender equality, from economic empowerment to legal reform, driving more women into leadership and reducing child marriage. Yeah, so the report highlights these two important things. Yeah, driving more women into leadership and reducing child marriage. In reality, nowadays, especially in our parliament, there are only 22% of women. Yeah, 22% only from more than 500 members of the parliaments. And then women in managerial position, it is about 35%. Yeah, it is better than the previous years, or at least in these last 2 decades, there are more women who reach, let's say, a high position in terms of managerial position, in terms of the governments, and also in the big company, in the big in terms of education in the universities, etc. And the third thing is about the reducing child marriage. Yeah. And our observation in connection with that, so positively, we can say that today there is a significant progress on women's role in the society, and that's the opportunity. But the challenges remain. Yeah, we still are facing this culture, especially patriarchal mentality. It has been our culture already. It is not easy It is not easy to change this situation. It's a cultural. And the second one is religious view on women. I don't want to mention which religion, but in general, it is still the same, how the religion maintain that view on women, especially women's role or women leadership, etc. And the second one, it is about the number of women in parliament is only 22%. Actually, the government had projected by imposing this general law election in 2008 to reach 30%. But within this, at least we have already 4 times of general election, but it never reached that 30%. Because of this political reason, sometimes this ideal to reach 30% had to face the barrier. The barrier is the political party policies. Sometimes they cannot reach because for the purpose of the political reason, sometimes they put more or to choose men than women. So that's the reason why women have a lack of opportunities to participate in the political decision. Okay, in the second one, I would like to present our ministry. Our ministry, we name it as the Komunitas Sepekita or Sepekita Community. Yes, Sepekita, it is an abbreviation. Sepe is the name of a flower. It's Sepe. S stands for solidarity. E stands for economy. P stands for pemberdayaan. Pemberdayaan is Indonesian translation of empowerment. And E stands for ecology. While kita is the meaning of kita is we. So we put it together, Sepe Kita. Okay, and I belong to this group. I'm a part of the companion of this community. Most of the members are women, domestic housewives, and also some are young girls. Okay. It was founded in 2017 by declarations and lay partnership in Indonesia. It is because we, this is our way to answer the challenge from the congregation, how to involve more women and also lay in our mission. So in 2017, our delegation started this initiative, as we established this Sepekita community. And the members are lay women and men with the assistance of the clericians. But those who are really playing important role in this community are women. And our main project here is really we want to support the women empowerment. We support women for how to increase domestic income, giving them training in developing skills and leadership, supporting small business. Actually, this is our main activity. We help women how to increase their income by selling their local products and training them how to do small business. As a part of these women entrepreneurs, doing charitable work in collaboration with the church and the government and other stakeholders. You can see here some pictures, some activities of this Sepekita community. But however, in our evaluation, at least we can trace these 4 important points: strength, weakness, opportunity, and challenges. Our strength here it's about inclusivity because we involve men and women, clerics, religious, sisters, and also lay women. And also we talk about the spirit of collaboration and synodality. And also in an ecumenical spirit, the members are not only Catholics, but also we welcome the Protestants. As of now, we don't have the Muslim women because it is founded in the Christian province, in my province. But we welcome also women from Protestant church. And the most important thing is this community has been rooted in the church social teaching. We are thankful to have also the coordinator, the companion, or those who started this initiative and make the church social teaching as the foundation for this community. In terms of weakness, we talk about the lack of commitment in fulfilling the programs. Yeah, because of the complexities of activities in the family, in the church, etc. Sometimes we cannot commit to say fully no in doing our programs. And the second one is the poor coordination and leadership. Yeah, most of these lay women, they graduated from, let's say, high school, so they have no, they're not really rich in experience, how to do business, etc. And also we have lack of connection in business. Yeah. So we need really support from the government or those who are expert in this field. The challenge, the opportunity is really, we feel that the government and also the church giving more space for women to play an important role. Yeah, or the significant role of women in the society and the church. Really, despite the fact that the country is the population are Muslims, but we really feel that everyone is have that capacity, opportunity to play an important role. And the second one, it is about equality in entrepreneurship. Even simple women or how to say mother of the family, they have that opportunity. They can express their dream how to increase their income in terms of this entrepreneurship. The challenges are, first, it is about patriarchal and clerical mentality. Sometimes we experience the lack of support from the church. Yeah, let's say not, of course, not all of the authorities, but yeah, sometimes people look down at our project, etc., because most of the members are this levy. And the second one, it is about the competition between small and big business. Yeah, I think this is one of the biggest challenges that we have. And the third one, it is about the lack of financial support. Yeah. So that's about our Sepekita community. Finally, the expectations. First of all, we hope that the religion, especially the church, has to be more active in supporting women's role in the society and in the religious institutions. And the second one is the government must give a guarantee to the small business. Yeah, regulations that is supportive to local small business and women entrepreneurship. And sometimes what I've been experiencing as well as a priest, as a religious, that in the church, we talk more about, how to say, more on sacraments, etc. But we forget how to support the livelihood of the people, no? Encourage them how to increase their income, etc. And the third one, it is about there should be equality in terms of salary between men and women. Yeah, actually, this is one of the important points of the stakeholders when they criticize the government. There is still the disparity between salary of men and women in the different fields. And the last one, the local government should know and be stricter in applying the protection of children law and also to support the education for young girls. Okay, that's all from me with these expectations. Thank you very much for your attention. Okay.
Thank you very much, Christian. And I note that reference to Mary Ward at the end there, which is very good collaborative thinking of you, as we had members of the Mary Ward family also with you today. And, you know, you mentioned right at the beginning that you happen to be the only man who is speaking on the panel today, and yet your presentation, the details of the approach of the Sepekita community program is such a good illustration of the importance of collaboration among women and men to achieve the empowerment of women, which is in turn for the good of all. And, Caridad mentioned this, I think, and perhaps others did as well earlier today, how important it is that our programs that are aimed at the empowerment of women also bring in a raising of consciousness and a sense of partnership and support from men in the community as well. And you have emphasized very clearly as well that in a particular way, men who have positions of leadership in church can have a very powerful role in trying to shift and reform that culture and the mentality of patriarchy and clericalism to move past this attitude of looking down on the potential and the contributions of women, and especially lay women, as you said, which is both a challenge toward the objectives of your ministry with Sepikita, but it's also something that you are doing such a good job of proving the strength and the efficacy of women's contributions through the ministry itself, through the program, by modeling the contributions and the potential of lay women in that community, and by having both women and men religious and women and men who are lay all working together in that project is a great model and great evidence to help shift that mentality. And I also want to commend that the way you have conducted that nice SWOT, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and challenges analysis is another great model that we would love to see from governments when they are presenting their voluntary national review reports. We always wish that they would kind of be more neutral, more objective, and present their own progress in the way that you have presented the reality of your ministry. And so in that way, you're also offering a great model for governance as well. So thank you for your sharing and for that beautiful ministry as well.
Thank you, Teresa. Thank you.
All right, so we have one more speaker on our list for today, but as far as I know, she has not been able to join us. Yes, she's not here. Okay, we do, however, have a PowerPoint that she submitted. And so if you all would indulge me, I would like to at least share the content of her slides because she is offering another perspective and another viewpoint for us on goal SDG 5. And this is a presentation that was put together by a sister Arnolda, and she is a Holy Spirit missionary sister who works with a group called the Melanesian Institute, and she is located in Papua New Guinea. And so I will just share the content of her slides with you all so that you may also have the opportunity to be aware of her perspective and to know a little bit about the work that she is doing with the Melanesian Institute. Okay. So in her preparation for today, Sister Arnolda put together an analysis of the government report of Papua New Guinea on their progress toward achievement of the SDGs. And she focused in particular, of course, on SDG 5 and sought to answer the question, how does this voluntary national review report reflect the reality of women and girls as I have experienced it in Papua New Guinea. And so she offers a few key observations about gender in Papua New Guinea for all of us. One, that 2 out of 3 women in Papua New Guinea are affected by gender-based violence, which is a very high rate. And that also women in Papua experience a phenomenon that they call sorcery accusations, which is women being accused of kind of witchcraft or sorcery that can then lead to acts of violence against them. And this is something that is not widely recognized when women who have experienced this violence appear at health centers. It's not regularly recorded that this was the motivation behind the violence. And so there's not good data on the extent of this kind of underlying problem that is leading to violence against women. And she also notes that there's low representation of women in leadership and governance. It is under 5%. And that there is weak enforcement of GESI policies, which are gender equity related policies in the country. So she says that some of the key gaps between the report and the reality are that the report has minimal mention of gender-based violence, no mention of the sorcery accusation related violence, very few references to rural realities or to marginalized groups, and a strong emphasis on policy rather than actual practice or realities of women and girls in the country. And she also underscores on the issue of gender-based violence that Papua New Guinea has among the world's highest rates of this type of violence. And while the report of the government lists many strategies to address this violence, it ignores that there's currently a lack of services on the ground to actually deliver responses, services such as safe houses. And she also notes that rural women are the population that is most affected by this gap in services. When it comes to sorcery accusation and violence resulting from that, there was no mention of it at all in the Voluntary National Review. And this is a brutal and gender-motivated form of violence in several communities, Enga, Simbu, and Ela. And the Melanesian Institute actually hosts a series of dialogues for communities that have experienced this type of violence to help bring into the light some of the trauma that results from it, as well as other outcomes that it has on victims of this violence, like displacement and ongoing experience of injustice. With regard to women in leadership, she notes that the government seems to want to support women's leadership on paper, in writing, but the reality is that there are still many cultural barriers, that there is a lack of structural support from governance, from structure in society, and that women continue to be systematically excluded, and they are very underrepresented at all levels, from the ward to the district to the provincial level. She also notes that in the government's report, there were some vital voices from the community that were missing. Particularly, she emphasizes the need for the voices of survivors, frontline workers, faith-based groups. And she says that their insights are really critical if we seek to have reporting that is truthful and solutions that will be effective. And then when it comes to the gap between policy and practice, she says that while policies exist to try to address gender inequality, those policies are very weakly implemented. And that is partly due to the fact that there is a lack of funding to support their implementation, as well as a lack of awareness in the community that those policies even exist, in order to kind of allow people to claim their rights and hold leadership accountable for those laws. And she notes in particular that rural realities are another element, another consideration that is absent from the government's report and narrative. And then to offer a bit about her response through her ministry work with the Melanesian Institute. She says that several elements of the Institute's work are very important to highlight, which is that they always seek for their work to be grounded in the lived reality of the people. For example, through the dialogues I mentioned earlier related to sorcery accusations. They seek to be inclusive and take a participatory approach. And they incorporate faith and cultural values to help with the changing of mindsets, and to move toward equity, first in the mind and then from there to the larger community. And they also incorporate elements of education and advocacy to help bridge that gap between policy and practice to make good policies real and for communities to help make policy itself stronger. So a few key takeaways. She says that the voluntary national review of Papua New Guinea is very polished, and presents very polished policies, but there are big gaps between that and the realities on the ground. There is a great need for more truthful and inclusive reporting that goes into such a report. And she also wants to highlight that the Melanesian Institute is working on filling some of those gaps in reporting, as well as gaps between policy and practice through their advocacy. For this, she recommends listening to communities, addressing gender-based violence and sorcery accusation-related violence urgently, investing in implementation, not only in frameworks and policies. And she also recommends that government partner with faith-based and community organizations such as the Melanesian Institute. And she offers her thanks to all of you for taking the time to hear her contribution. And so, though she is not here, we thank Sister Arnolda very much for taking the time to share that experience and those observations with us. And to the extent that I was able to relay them, was able to incorporate a few things that she mentioned on one of our earlier calls this year. But we're very grateful for an additional layer and for bringing in insight about the specific elements of culture that echo the sentiment that has been shared by many of our speakers today, that we really need to be close to the people to understand all of the many complicated facets of any problem, whether it's gender equality, whether it's health disparities, whether it's, say, pollution and environmental degradation. It's so important to be close to the people to understand the true nature of the challenges and to work at a community level, at a heart level, at a mindset level, in order to help facilitate transformation and to, in turn, allow our own minds and hearts to be converted and transformed as well. So with that, we will draw our session today to a close. I want to give big thanks to all of our speakers today who offered such rich analysis, as well as examples of fabulous, inspiring good practices that are contributing both to gender equality, as well as several other sustainable development goals, and who offer us truly vital inspiration to continue the work that we all are doing on so many different fronts and so many different angles. This is fuel for all of us to carry on, but also to continue to keep our ears and our eyes open to continue learning and improving our own process on the road as we go. So, and thank you all for attending as well, for your attentive listening. And we look forward to welcoming you all again tomorrow, when we will have yet another session of the lab to share with you. And tomorrow, we will have the pleasure to engage with yet another sustainable development goal. And tomorrow, the focus of our discussion will be Sustainable Development Goal number 8, which is decent work and sustainable economies. So we hope that you will join us tomorrow at the same time as we began our session today for further input and insight on that goal. Thank you all very much. Hope to see you tomorrow.
Teresa.
Thank you.
Thank
everyone.
you.
Excellent work. Excellent. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Thank you. Gracias
Thank
a
you.
todos.
Thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
organizing
See you,
Everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Hasta mañana. Morning. Tomorrow.
Wow.
Teresa, God bless you. Thank you so much. You just jump in and amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Teresa, especially.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Bye.
Muchas
Bye.
gracias. Thank you, Teresa.
Thank you.
Wow, Bess.
Gracias, Teresa, y a todos. Hasta mañana.